Hello and welcome to Circa Tonight, powered by SharpStack. Matt Brown and Steven Andress. Week number 2 is upon us. Thursday night football should be a banger. Commanders at the Packers. And Steven, this is a team that has gained a ton of steam over the last 3 weeks leading into all of this. The Packers show out in week number 1, basically make the Lions look like they didn't deserve to be there. And the Commanders, an interesting win. Curious to see what you took from that. I don't know if I really got a ton from that from last week. So a very interesting breakdown here for us.
Yeah, can't wait for it. It's going to be an awesome matchup. Two teams I think that we both would agree are prime contenders to come out of the NFC to make it to the Super Bowl. So excited for that part of the handicap. Excited to check out the prop screen at SharpStack and see if there's any value headed into this one. And obviously, we're also going to go through all of our bets for week number 2 as well. If you're new to the show, keep in mind that you can sign up for SharpStack using that QR code. And hello, thank you for joining us, of course. Very nice royalty wave there, Matt. Use that coupon code TNF Live. You'll get a free 7-day trial and 25% off as well. And obviously, each and every week, we are very proud to come to you from the newest sports book in the state of Kentucky, the best sports book in this entire Midwest, South. We're on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, Matt. So you tell me what region I'm in here. I guess we're South, but it's beautiful here. This is like a miniature version of the awesome Circa Sportsbook in Las Vegas. They got the stadium style seating. As you can see behind me, they got the giant odds boards. They got cheap beer, Matt. What else could you want, buddy?
Yeah, make the trip down there for sure. If you're within driving distance, it is totally worth it. You are going to want to take in a game day there at Circa Sports in Kentucky. As we get going, we are sitting right here, Steven. It is 3 most places in favor of Green Bay. A little bit of juice on that 3. You can find 2 different 3.5s out there if you want to pay a little bit to get the hook with Washington. So go out, look around. You can find a hook if you need to. From a total standpoint, we're 48 there at Circa, all the way out to only 48.5. So we're not going to find a 49. So 48.5 is our total here in this one. The big news just coming through, as you know, we get the inactives about 90 minutes before game time, and the Packers are going to be down 2 offensive linemen. Zach Tom, Aaron Banks. Yeah, 40% of the offensive line is going to be out. And this is a pretty big deal, Steven, because again, now we're talking cluster injury stuff. We're talking about an offensive line that wasn't really ranked very high coming into the season as it was anyway, and now you're down to second stringers at 2 different positions.
For sure. I mean, for me, I kind of saw this coming. They were DMP for a couple of days earlier this week, so I hopped early on a Commanders +4. We've come down now. You're going to have to pay even money at Circa to get that. And across the board here, I want to pull up SharpStack real quick, check out the odds comparison tool here. And let me add this up here. And if we check it out, you see Circa in that first column. That's your place to bet the Commanders right now. If you still want to at that +3, you're getting even money. But the 3.5s are gone, Matthew. Like, you are not finding them. I mean, maybe a totally juiced one, depending on what state you're in. But any of those -110s, -115s are totally gone here. So, for me at this stage, I think you have to decide how significant are the offensive line injuries, because you know me, I'm an inside out handicapper when it comes to offenses in the NFL. I put a lot of weight into offensive lines, and against this defensive line for Washington, I think this is actually one of the more underrated defensive line units in the NFL. I think Dorrance Armstrong is an up and coming defensive end. They got Kinlaw in the middle. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned here about this price for the Packers now.
Yeah, I tucked a 3.5 away into the account as well. Listen, 3 even money is still bettable to me with Washington. Obviously, your push equity is going up, but the even money on the 3, I think is perfectly fine. We do have an hour until kick. Maybe you see some 3.5s pop a little bit more widely. Again, can find them at 2 of the national books out there. So, as always, shop around. We say that constantly with that. But I think this is a pretty big deal here, Stephen. And so I think we're going to see a better version of Washington here in this one. Last week against the Giants, I looked at this game, rewatched it. It was missing something, and I think that something was the fact that you didn't have your number one receiver all camp, and it just didn't really mesh, and you had to kind of force feed Debo because he was there, and while Debo was fine, he is not Terry McLaurin, and I expect a much better performance out of McLaurin here on Thursday night, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk some player prop numbers and things like that, but I think you see a better version of this Washington offense, and certainly the defense should be able to get some pressure on Love tonight.
I mean, I'll say this about week 1, Matt, and, we're always trying to figure out, do we stick to our priors? Do we come off them a little bit? Washington came into the season down one of its offensive linemen in Sam Cosmi. Now, they knew that for a long time, and they were able to prepare for it, but that was supposed to be a very fearsome defensive front that they faced with the New York Giants. And I came away a little impressed with the Commanders' offensive line. Now, will it hold up against Micah Parsons and the rest of this very ferocious as well Packers front? That's what we're going to find out tonight. But it's big picture, right, Matt? Because the Micah Parsons trade happens, and the market rating for the Packers just blows up, right? Now, all of a sudden, they're being rated like a top 4 or 5 team in the NFL. So when it was at 3.5, 4, we got to have that conversation. Now we're at 3. We don't have to lay the juice. I think if you are in on the Packers, this is clearly your buy point. This is the lowest it's been all week. This matches the look-ahead line. If you think the Packers are a ferocious team, I think you can make a fair argument that this is the fair price.
Yeah, I am curious to see how much truth we're getting out of Micah Parsons and this Packers team, because you heard Parsons say he thinks it might take him about a month to get fully ramped up for the season. We did see last week that he was on a pitch count and didn't get in there until it was kind of more the obvious passing downs or big downs and things like that. And Steven, I do wonder if maybe that's not necessarily the case. I wonder if we see a little bit more of Micah Parsons tonight, even though they're trying to say we're not going to.
Well, I think there's a little bit of like vet treatment here with how much he's practicing, but at the same time, I have a hard time getting that epidural report out of my head from going into the season. So I do think the back injury is real. Clearly didn't matter last week, Matt. Now we'll see if this is kind of a war of attrition with him as the season goes on, and maybe he misses a game or two. I'm not sure, but as of right now in my handicapping, I'm treating him like he's normal Micah Parsons until we see a reason not to, because he was 100% a factor last week against the Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He while the counting stats weren't there, he was in the backfield. He was a disruptor.
And it's so a trickle down effect too, right, Matt? Like now all the other guys that we had questions about coming into the season aren't getting double teams, and now they're freed up. Van Ness looked good last week. We have Cooper on this unit. So there's a trickle down effect here too that we also have to consider.
It wasn't all bad news though for the Packers. Like we said, Micah Parsons is going to be active, and of course get a cornerback back for them as well here in this one. So it wasn't all terrible news from the injury front for them. Commanders, pretty standard injury, pretty standard injury report for them. Steven, as we look into the player prop market, like we said, we're both on the Commanders here tonight. Player prop market for me, I did the same thing as you. So I kind of read the tea leaves. I thought we would be down at least one of the offensive linemen, if not both of them. And I also thought that even if they went, they're obviously going to be compromised. So I got out in front of this and I took like a over 5.5 rushing yards for Jordan Love, thinking that this pressure, what we see a lot of times, even if the pressure is getting to guys, right? If they don't totally get home, Steven, sometimes there's those little gaps, right? Sometimes there's little holes that you can like shoot through. It's not that Jordan Love isn't athletic. It's not like he can't run. He's just not a run first guy. He doesn't look to run. He likes to go through his progressions. He's got a lot of receivers that he trusts. And so I am it's not a thing where, I mean, you can see like there's still 5.5s available right out
Yep.
there in the market right now. I think that the 5.5 is pretty interesting, especially with down 2 offensive linemen. We might see him have to take off a little bit more than he's used to tonight. And so I think this is well within the range of outcomes, so long as we can get 3 or 4 where he's got to take off.
I don't mind the handicap. It makes sense to me. I was actually looking in the same market as well, but for the other team, Matt, with the Washington Commanders. And I want to start with the quarterback there as well, with Jaden Daniels. Now, there's a pretty big discrepancy here depending on which sports book you're looking at with Jaden Daniels rushing yards. And that's why, this is just one small way that you can use this SharpStack tool to kind of instantly shop the market and see what's available. Now, obviously, if you are in a state where Circa Sportsbook is available, we encourage you to go there. They do sports betting the right way. They have low implied hold on a lot of their markets. They have high limits. They're never going to limit you just for winning your bets like a lot of other books do. But if Circa is not available to you, then this SharpStack tool is a very powerful option for you to find the best in the market. If you want to bet over 43.5, you'll see it instantly. If you want to bet under 49.5, you see it instantly. Now, as far as the handicap goes here for me, Matt, I'm looking at an under on Jaden Daniels rushing yards, which is, admittedly a little uncomfortable at times, but a couple of reasons why here. First of all, if you look at the man versus zone splits for Jaden Daniels in his admittedly small sample of his career so far, there is a big difference between how often he's throwing the ball and completing passes versus zone, and then that dips down about 15% when he's facing man. Now, the other effect of that is in the rushing game as well. I'm not the first person to say this. It's kind of a high-level take when it comes to the NFL. You'll hear coaches and tape grinders say it as well. When you're playing a defense that plays a ton of zone defense, the eyes of that defense are facing you and facing the quarterback, which makes it harder to break away for long runs and scrambles. There's always going to be eyes on you to see where you're going as the quarterback. And the Packers last year played one of the highest rates of zone defense in the NFL. And in week 1, that trend continued. They went right back to it, played one of the highest rates of zone defense in the NFL in week 1. So I think that's going to make it harder for kind of the improvisational scrambling rushing yards that we see with Jaden Daniels. So it's an under for me. Find the best number and take the under. And then the other side of this is a derivative market that I think is really interesting for this game. Shout out to a friend of mine in the Gridiron Gamble Discord for putting me onto this. There's a couple books out there, Matt, that have a market for most rushing yards in this game. And the favorites are, as you'd expect, Josh Jacobs, but he's missing 2 offensive linemen. The quarterback, Jaden Daniels, is there because we know he's a great scrambler, but maybe it's a little tougher because of all the reasons I just said. The name that stuck out to me was Mr. Bill Krosky-Merritt, my friend, who's sitting at 37.5 as the over-under, but in that market for most rushing yards, you can find better than 4-1. You can find close to 5-1 on old Bill here to have the most rushing yards in this game. And I think he is becoming the early down back for Washington. I think he's going to get that role over Austin Eckler, who's aging and more of a pass catcher. So I thought that was a decent little long shot for tonight.
Well, he is, I mean, there's one thing working for him too, which is the fact that Eckler was at least questionable in this game because he got banged up a little bit. With all of that, I mean, I guess my question to you would be, how many yards do you think it's going to take to get to being the lead rusher in the game? That'd be my only question for you, because if you think it's going to take 60 yards, or if you think it's going to take 70 yards, like, you're getting plus 431 in the alt market on 70 yards on Krosky-Merritt. And then, like, it doesn't really matter if he outrushes Josh Jacobs or not, right? I mean, you're getting 431. It's nearly 3-1 on 60 plus. So I guess you just have to ask yourself, what do you think that number is that it would take to be the number 1 rusher in the game, and then decide what the best bet is from there?
Well, for me, part of the handicap was I thought it wasn't going to take a huge number to be in the mix here for this because of those offensive line injuries to the Green Bay Packers. So if you think volume's still going to be king there for Josh Jacobs, then what you said still makes a lot of sense, and you got to price shop that a little bit. So, but I think if it's 5-1 or a little under 5-1, I think the most rushing yards makes the most sense. If you don't have that available, it's closer to 4-1. I think the alt rushing yards markets for old Bill makes more sense, to your point.
So the other bet that I have in from a prop standpoint, I did play over on McLaurin receiving yards. You can find that out there, 51.5-ish, something like that. Like I said, Steven, I'm just buying into the fact that we're going to see him become a little bit more of a piece of this offense in this game. And so he was not targeted. There you go. You're finding out there in the market. Yeah, it looks like 51 and a half. Yeah, 51 and a half seems like to be the prevailing number. That's the best one out there. And so with that, for me, he is clearly still the number one receiver. It is not going to be Deebo Samuel. I understand Deebo Samuel got double-digit targets in week number 1. Like I said, I think there's a lot more to do that. By the way, here's a perfect example of why this is such a great tool, right? So, Steven, you go, MGM it's a yard less, but the juice is 130. It's one more yard, and we're getting 111 at one of the books out there. And so for me, that is like a great lesson as to why this is so important, because we're taking the one more yard at far less juice all day long. So This is like a great comparison tool. If you only have BetMGM, you probably pop in there and you see, 50, okay, whatever it is, what it is. No, man, that's why you have multiple outs, one more yard, and you're saving 20 cents of juice.
If this looks good to you, again, use the coupon code TNF Live over at 44.com. Free 7-day trial. Get 25% off the tool as well. If it's not for you, then you can cancel the trial before it's up. So, but yeah, I 100% agree with you. Never laying minus 130 juice on 50.5. We can get, 51.5 for closer to minus 110, minus 111. So point well taken there.
So again, just my thing on McLaurin is he's obviously the number one. They paid him to be the number one. I think it was just, he was trying to get back in game shape, getting back familiar with the offense, all this stuff. Remember, like, I understand he's been there, but he hadn't been there when Deebo's been there. He hadn't been there since they're trying to like do different things. And year number 2, you're probably making adjustments because these defensive coordinators are very smart. They've got film on Jaden Daniels at this point. So he wasn't there all offseason. He wasn't there all training camp. And so I am back to thinking he gets more targets in this one, and that he is more of the wide receiver 1, and he's not priced as a wide receiver 1. He has the exact same receiving total basically as Deebo Samuel. And I think that that's wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you there. One more prop here I wanted to bounce off of you. I haven't bet it, but I wanted to talk to you about it here. Just get your first impression. We haven't talked about this before the show. So Matt's first impression here. Just the idea that any given week, we have no idea who the leading receiver is on the Green Bay Packers. They spread the ball out.
It's prop betting. If you like to bet receiving props, the Green Bay Packers are your nightmare. Like, they are your own personal hell.
For overs, right?
Yeah.
What about unders? What about just taking whoever, let's see, Tucker Kraft's at 41.5 at some spots. Dobbs is at 42.5. Golden, who only had 2 targets last week in his first NFL game, 35.5. Musgrave's just 1 catch, but Jaden Reed, 38, 39. There's a 41 on Jaden Reed. What about just each week taking the guy who the books have as the leading receiver of the Packers for that week and just betting under?
I think you could do that, or on the opposite flip side of that, if you just like to root for human achievement as opposed to rooting against human achievement, then pick one of them and then bet an alt, because it's like there's going to be a guy that is the one, but we just never know who the one is going to be. And so they just price it all in these no man land numbers essentially, because they don't know either. So Steven, like you said, yes, I think you could take the guy with the highest number and bet the under on him. And you could also take a dude with like the lowest number and then bet like 20-yard alt on the over on him, because he, like, any given week, it could be Dobbs. Any given week, it could be Golden. Any of these dudes could be the number 1 receiver.
And with the way the offense is run through Jordan Love, week 1 was again an indication of what we saw in previous years with Jordan Love when he's been healthy, where they're taking shots. Last week, he had one of the highest ADOTs of any quarterback in week 1, which falls in line with exactly what he was his last 2 years as the starting quarterback. He is a below 50% success rate quarterback, but among the league leaders when healthy in EPA per play. So the idea of maybe a receiver in this offense having a low reception, high yards game is very much in line in the range of outcomes with the way this team runs the offense and likes to take shots down the field.
Yeah, I think this is all. I think this is how you have to play Green Bay, right? Like you can't just go in and play them straight every week because you have absolutely no idea who the dude is going to be, and so maybe Golden over the course of the season establishes himself as the wide receiver 1, but that does not seem to be the case through 1 week here. So until we see otherwise, I think you treat this like you just said. You can just go in and play the guy with the highest number under, take one of the other guys, play it all over, hope that he's the guy that week, and you just kind of move on with it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And Jordan Love, week 1, the number 2 EPA plus CPOE composite behind only Lamar Jackson, despite having an average depth of target over 11 yards, which would lead the league every year in the NFL.
Yeah. So, we're going to go ahead and move into the other games here in week number 2. Appreciate you guys joining us here on Circa tonight, powered by SharpStack. And again, go up there, TNF Live, if you want a 7-day free trial of SharpStack. Or let me tell you, just take my word for it. Just go sign up. Like you don't even need to do you just go sign up. It's worth it.
I've been using it for a month. It's already plus EV.
Yeah. It's worth it. Just sign up and just use it. All right. So let's go down the board here. Games that we don't have any bets. We won't waste your time on. New England on the road at Miami. This one I actually do have a bet in my account on this one. We're sitting 1.5 in favor of Miami at home. 43.5 is our total here in this one. Steven, it's overreaction week. Miami is not as bad as we saw last week, but it just as well as we could say New England might not be as good as we saw last week. There's all of that we have to take into consideration. That said, in my power ratings, I have New England ahead of Miami. We have the benefit of it still being warm at most of the country. So New England's not used to being in the cold and then going down to the heat of Miami and all the things that we talk about with these type of games. They're still used to playing in the heat. They're still used to practicing in the heat. This is not one of those games in which we would identify a spot, a weather spot or anything like that. I have New England higher in the power ratings. I like them better than this team. This is a great teaser leg. It's only a 43-point total in this one. So if you take this up to 7.5 all day long, but I bet the plus 1.5. I took the 1.5 with New England, and I feel really confident in it.
I'm right there with you, man. I also took 1.5 as I was driving down here. The plus money on New England started to disappear. Circa went from plus money to minus 102 on New England. So as the limits get higher, as we get closer to kickoff, more New England money has come in. To me, it's part on-field handicap and part narrative, right? Like, do I think Miami's going to quit after week 1? No. Do I think it's hilarious that they held a players-only meeting after week 1? That's one of the most hilarious things I've ever heard in covering the NFL. Clearly, there's some kind of disconnect, something wrong with the culture. There's, we've seen it, we've heard it since the summer.
It looked broken. I'll say that. Like it looked broken, but they're not the worst team in the NFL. Like I know there were some people who were trying to get it was clickbait stuff out there. Like, oh, look at my power ratings. I have, Miami's work. Well, no, they're not the worst team in the NFL. That's not the case, but they might be really bad. They definitely could be really bad, Steven. I mean, Tua was the 4th lowest pass grade quarterback according to Pro Football Focus in week number 1. And
somebody on the Colts defense got interviewed after the game and said, "What did you do?" "Oh, we just pressed him and made him go off his first read, and he didn't know where to go." Like that whole handicap I gave you last week about Tua is always the fastest quarterback from snap to throw every year. Well, he couldn't because the read wasn't there and the offensive line didn't hold up beyond the first read. So if you want to strip all the narrative we just talked about out of it, Matt, this is a Miami team with cluster injuries on the offensive line. They were already missing 2 coming into the year. Now right tackle Austin Jackson probably isn't going to play. They have cluster injuries at cornerback that already made them on paper one of the worst corner units in the league coming into week 1. Now they lost another in Storm Duck, who was already practice squad quality. Now you have the backup to the practice squad quality going out there.
Maybe more off the field stuff with Tyreek Hill going on that like makes the locker room weird and all that too,
And then Vrabel said after the game for New England that they want to run the ball more. They want to be more balanced. And now the Dolphins' 330-pound defensive tackle Benito Jones is week to week, which usually means they're not going to play this week. So to the people who are saying bounce back for Miami, what's left? Like, you have some fancy names from the outside to quarterback, at receiver as well, but like, there's what's left here in terms of the foundation of this roster. It's almost bare, Matt.
I can say this: the Green Bay money is coming in. We have just gone to 3.5 at Circa. In this one, we are minus 125 at two different books. So the 120 now. So we are looking at the Green Bay money coming in here. So Steven, maybe you and I are on the wrong side of this one, at least from the people that are coming in late. Well, but again, maybe not, because we have the 3.5 as it is anyway. You have the 4, I have the 3.5. So I mean, it's just getting back to the number that I liked.
I think with TNF, we're in week 2. We've had one game to look at. I think this is a game where you can make very reasonable arguments for the Commanders at 3.5 or 4 and the Packers at 3. And I'm not going to say you're being outlandish or wild about that. I mean, this to me is more a reminder to the novice and intermediate bettors out there to go find the right number. I mean, if you wanted the Packers 5 minutes ago, Circa was your best spot for it. Now, if you want to come back in on the Commanders, Circa now is minus 120, and you can go to other books and find a plus 3.5, minus 115, maybe in the next couple minutes here, if the Packers money comes in. Like, just give yourself the most outs, find the best number.
I know everybody wants 110, but just remember that if you were trying to buy off the 3, it's going to cost you way more than the 10 cents than it is to the 120. So just, that's also a deal too, where I know it stings sometimes to pay the 120, but if you were trying to buy off the 3, it's going to cost you 30, 35, 40, depending on the book. So like they've gotten ridiculous with all that stuff. So just keep that in mind also as well. All right, Steven, Jacksonville on the road at Cincinnati. This is currently 3.5 in favor of the Bengals at home, 49-49.5, the total out there in the market. We saw an absolute stinker in Cincinnati last week. That offense that we thought was going to be high flying did not show up. Joe Burrow was under pressure a ton. That said, Myles Garrett is going to put a lot of people under pressure throughout the course of the season. Jacksonville, fine. It was fine. I think they got to figure out what's going on with Brian Thomas and with that connection with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas and all that. It's very interesting to me how they were trying to force feed Travis Hunter. I don't know about all that, but I think the story heading into this one, Steven, is just the fact that they said they're going to get him more defensive snaps this week to try to help out with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Does that, for us as bettors, mean we should be looking at unders in the prop market? Because he's not going to be able to run as many routes if he's out there trying to defend Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as he did in week 1. So something we have to consider if they're telling the truth, because look, more snaps. He was only 6 snaps on defense. More snaps could mean 8, so I mean, like, we have to try to figure out what they mean by that.
Yeah. Let's pull it up real quick. Let's see where old Travi's at right now for receiving yards in this market. So I think that's a good look for you. We're sitting at around 47.5, 48. So yeah, I mean, trying to jog my memory for last week. I think it was like a 6 or 7 target, 4 catch for 30 yards or something. It wasn't very much already for last week.
Yeah. So just something to think about. Again, we don't know what more defensive snaps means. He only took 6 this past week. More could mean 8. More could mean 9. More could mean 15 or 20. And if it's 15 or 20, then he's not running as many routes out there. Like, it's not like college. You can't go beat NFL quality corners if you're tired. Like, it's just not going to happen. And you certainly can't go cover Jamar Chase if you're tired. I mean, like that ain't going to happen either. So just something to consider here. What do you think about this spread sitting 3.5?
I think you're past the buy point of the Jags. You're getting the worst of the number if you want to bet the Jags at this point. And if you are going to, then you better just take the 3.5. No bet for me in this one. I do think if it gets down to 3 minus 110, Matt, I got to start thinking about the Bengals. That feels like it's too much of an overreaction off of week 1.
Yep.
I
played an expensive 3.
Okay.
I played an expensive 3 out there on Cincinnati for the exact same reason you just said. We are a very reactionary betting market these days. Like, we are very reactionary. We see something and we just bet the thing that we saw instantly. All you have to do is watch any of these award markets. In game, they're moving. like they're in game, they're moving because people are betting them for what they see with their own eyes. Yes, it was a stinker last week, no doubt about it. But the only thing you can point to for the Browns team that you really like is kind of that defensive line, because you have one of the best defensive players in all the football on that defensive line. I don't think Jacksonville puts as much pressure on Burrow. Also, they're back home where Joe Burrow and company have lit up other teams on the offensive side at home. So I think like you said, 5.5, I'm not interested. We've now moved all the way to 3. This is an overcorrection in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the pause button on the Jags. I have the AFC South ticket on them from before the year at 3-1. Still feel good about it. Glad I bet that and not like over 9.5 wins for them, because 8 wins might be enough in this division. We'll see. 9 wins maybe as well. But Trevor Lawrence, to your point, Matt, did not look great last week, and he was among the least pressured quarterbacks in the league in week 1. So jury is way out for me on Trevor Lawrence at this point.
There were a lot of Caleb Williams-esque throws from him, except the problem is he's been in the league for way longer than Caleb Williams. So like that was a problem for me there in that too. Cleveland on the road at Baltimore, our biggest spread of the week, 11.5, 12 in favor of Baltimore at home. We're looking at 45 to 45.5 on the total side of things. Yes, it was a losing effort from Baltimore. Yes, they did blow a double-digit lead. However, it's to arguably a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, arguably a top 3 favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not holding too much against them. I didn't really bump them in the power ratings or anything like that, Steven. I look, like the Bills have Josh Allen. He's Superman, right? I mean, like he did it all in that game. And I don't think you really hold that too much against Baltimore. And of course, we just talked about Cleveland, how they held their own there at home against Cincinnati.
Yeah, no bet for me in this one. The interesting conversation is Survivor. Are you burning the Ravens or not? And if you're in Circa Survivor, are you burning them when the Ravens are on the Thanksgiving Black Friday slate? That's what's interesting to me.
Yeah, I am not. So I got all 10 through this past week. I'm not playing the Ravens this week with any of the entries. I think they are far, far, far too valuable to hold on to. If you have, and Steven, you and I have done a ton of Survivor content together. We always used to say, like, if you kind of have that Swiss Army knife in your back pocket, it just feels really good. And if you can hold on to a team like the Eagles or the Ravens or something to where, like, if you have to deploy them in any given week, you don't feel bad about it. Even if it's a tough game, like you're at least going in knowing you've got a real chance at winning. And I think the Ravens are just way, way too valuable to just have if you need them down the line.
Okay, then I don't want you to tell me now, but when we get to the team that you're primarily using in Survivor this week, I want you to tell me, because quite frankly, I haven't decided yet. I feel really queasy about basically everybody else at this point. So we'll go forward with that. Yeah,
New York Football Giants on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. This is come way down, actually. I mean, this was approaching 6.5 at a lot of places. We're down to 5.5 at some point. DraftKings is down to 4.5.
Whoa.
In favor of Dallas. So this is a very interesting line move here that people are coming in and backing this Giants team. 44.5, the prevailing total out there in the industry. Steven, one of the worst performances of the week with the New York Football Giants. You and I both losers with them last week as we had them in our account. I saw nothing that gave me any sort of hope that they're going to do any better, because the one thing that you and I talked about that we loved was, hey, guess what? At least we can feel warm and fuzzy about that defensive line that's going to make life hell on opposing quarterbacks. They had the 3rd lowest pressure rate in week 1 of all teams in the NFL to go along with the horrible, horrible offensive performance. They're sticking with Russell Wilson. You asked me to give it to you. I have 10 entries. I'm splitting them. Dallas is going to get half of my entries this week.
Wow. Okay. All right. I initially was not going to use Dallas this week because I thought they'd be pretty popular. We'll see. I might have to reevaluate that.
Doesn't look that way right now. Like, I think they're like 4th in popularity or something like that, like 4th or 5th.
I think we're going to be a pretty decent spread this week, right? Like a lot of teams that are double digits, but maybe only one that's over 20%. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think Baltimore in just standard Survivor contests is going to be very popular.
Massive. Okay.
But in Circa for sure, like, because you do have to keep in mind about, when these teams play in the later weeks. I don't think near as much, but yeah, I am I think we're in for a Dallas team that's not going to be quite as owned as we thought. And for me, that makes them very interesting.
All right. I have bet the Brian Dable Giants as underdogs multiple times over the past 24 months. And Matt, this week, I'm here to tell you this is my Waterloo when it comes to betting the New York Giants to cover the spread. Okay. This is it. If they do not cover this game against a team that none of us thought was top 20 coming into the year, that lost the best defensive player in the league, that has a tackle that was among the worst in the league in week 1 in terms of blown block rate and pressure percentage in Tyler Guyton. If they can't cover inside a touchdown, I'm done. All right. And I don't even know if Andrew Thomas is playing. I wouldn't bet this now. Like, enough is enough with the Giants, but I'm stuck on a look ahead bet here at 4.5. It opened on the look ahead at 4.5. And at the time before games were played, that looked really good. And it closed on the look ahead at 3. So I was like celebrating. And then Russell Wilson took a snap and I was no longer celebrating. So this is it, man. Like, if the Giants can't cover this, I am so done.
Dak Prescott, the number 2 rated quarterback in week number 1, according to Pro Football Focus, only behind Matthew Stafford. So Dak at least looked the part as far as their review went. And I got to say, a healthy Dak, I think the addition of Pickens actually helped out too. Some big drops. I mean,
there's going to be a lot of weeks where I'm just betting the over, right? You're just betting the over.
Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I thought Dallas looked pretty good. I really do. Like, I think they look pretty good. And I was not high on Dallas at all heading into the season. So this is me at least being open to changing my opinion on this team, because I was not high on them at all. All right. So we got the Rams on the road at the Titans. This is 5.5, basically across the board in the industry. 41.5 to 42 is our total out there. This is getting the other half of my survivor entries, the LA Rams. This is getting the other half of them. I understand it's on the road. I got to be honest. I kind of want to get at this Titans team before Cam Ward figures it out. And so that's why I'm going to use the Rams this week. I saw some stuff last week out of him that leads me to believe, like, he might get it at some point. I mean, I know he doesn't have the greatest weapons out there and all of that, but like, I don't know. I don't think I want to pick on this team come like week 10, 12, something like that or whatever. So let me get him while he's still a little green. He's going to make a couple of mistakes. This defense can probably capitalize on them. Stafford, savvy veteran. He's not worried about going into Tennessee in week number 2, getting it done and all of that. We got a healthy Puka Nacua. We still got a healthy Devontae Adams. Like, we got everything we need on the Rams side of things. So that's why I am there for them in Survivor.
This is the first team I circled for Survivor when the week started. And you know me, I'm always trying to nitpick in Survivor and find any possible way that this might go the wrong way, because it happens enough with enough of these teams, right? Otherwise, there'd be big chops of these pots at the end of the year. So the nitpick I had, I thought maybe I could poke in the Rams. They have a couple of injured guards on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And they're facing the Titans, who don't have great edge rushers, but their interior defensive line with Jeffrey Simmons is very good. And this is a defense that, even going back to last year with that dumpster fire of an offense, this defense, when L'Jarius Sneed, their top corner, was on the field, was above average in the NFL and NFL yards per play. And then week 1, they looked damn good against Denver and Bo Nix on the road with an elite Denver offensive line. So that's the pause I have. But also, I agree with everything you just said about Cam Ward. The worst success rate quarterback over the past 4 years with at least 200 plus plays was Bailey Zappi with a 33% success rate. In week 1, Cam Ward had a success rate less than 17%. That's how bad it was. Now, some of that were bad drops but we thought this was one of the worst receiving cores in the league going into the season. So I'm with you. I want to pick on them early, but the Rams offense, despite the win, didn't exactly inspire confidence last week against a good defense. So I'm nervous.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that all that's perfectly fine.
In terms of the spread, it would only be Titans for me. I haven't bet it yet, but but I also don't believe in Brian Callahan. Like, he looks like a dope.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get there on the spread either. Maybe a contest play for me because I don't think the Rams are going to be very popular after last week or whatever, but nothing for me in the account. Buffalo on the road at the Jets. This is 6.5 in favor of the Bills. And this is a very interesting deal here because it all depends on, Steven, if you buy into the whole narrative of letdown spots, which I don't necessarily think is a thing in the pros. I think college kids for sure have letdown spots and all of that, but like, it's a division game. Like, it's only the second game of the year. Are you really having a letdown in the second game of the year? But that's the narrative that I've been hearing if you're trying to find a reason to back the Jets against this Buffalo team.
Well, it's been one-way action for the Jets. I mean, didn't this open on the other side of 7, or maybe the look ahead was, and now we're through 7. So this is pretty significant Jets support here in terms of the spread. I missed that move, but Matt, I got to tell you, I wanted to buy low still on this Jets offense because I was extremely impressed in week 1. And what is more likely to be true, that the Jets offense has taken a step forward with a Ben Johnson disciple now as the offensive coordinator who followed Aaron Glenn out of Detroit in Tanner Engstrand, or is the Steelers defense just bad this year? I don't think the Steelers defense is bad. So I think this is arrow up for the Jets offense. I went and found like a team total over 18.5 earlier this week. I think over 19.5 that's still in market is good here. And I also found a Jets team total kind of leaning into this Ben Johnson disciple, scripting plays, making it easy for Justin Fields the way it was easy for Jared Goff in Detroit. There was a Jets first quarter team total over 0.5 point. So I took that as well as split a unit between the two. So I want to lean into this Jets offense. I don't know if the defense can stop Buffalo. That's why I was gun shy on the overall spread, but I do think this is arrow up with the Jets offense. I don't think they're going to win this game, but after this week, the schedule really lightens up. And I think that might be the buy point as well for Aaron Glenn, Coach of the Year.
I'm not saying that what we're going to get out of Justin Fields is what we're going to get out of Lamar. Like, I'm not saying that they're the same player, but I guess what I am saying is you saw Lamar and you saw Derrick Henry have a decent amount of success on the ground against the Bills in this thing. And so you start to look, and Breece Hall sitting at 59 yards and or Justin Fields sitting at 44 yards. And you have to think that one of the two of them is going to get there. They're going to be heavily featured. We saw that we have the proof in the pudding already that these that the backfields can get at this Bills team. So I do wonder where to go with that. I haven't put anything in there yet. I also consider just a longest rush, like for one of those guys. Like I think it was sitting at 12.5 for either Hall or Justin Fields. We saw several explosive runs. I mean, Derrick Henry, hell, what did he have? Like 4 explosive runs in that game against the Bills,
Fields anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some way to leverage Hall and Fields. I haven't quite gotten there yet, but I do think that, for what we saw last week, that they're going to have some sort of success on the ground against the Bills.
I agree, man. I think it's a high scoring game. I do.
So the Chicago Bears on the road at the Detroit Lions, 6.5 is our number here in this one, 46.5 to 47.5 out there in the market as far as the total goes. Like we said, no team is as good or as bad as they were in week 1. We should temper expectations and we should be realistic with everything. Both of these teams performed poorly. So both of these teams were bad, and we have to decide, are they bad? I don't think Detroit is bad, Steven. I think we might just be running into a Packers team that's probably pretty damn good, right? Yeah. And went out there and just proved that they are actual real contenders. And it was Detroit on the road and all those different things that we liked. Now Detroit's back home against Chicago, who looked good for a series and then didn't look good the whole rest of the game. I was kind of buying into the Bears nonsense. I thought like the offensive line was awesome with what they did. They loaded up on defense, the new coaches, all the different stuff like that. But Steven, the question mark was always Caleb Williams, and he did not answer that question for me, at least in week 1.
No, I thought Ben Johnson cooked up some great stuff in that game. I saw DJ Moore improvising when there was a busted coverage, and Caleb Williams couldn't deliver the ball where it needed to be. I mean, they were other than the first scripted drive of the game, they basically went 3 points the rest of the way until garbage time when they made it back at the end against Minnesota on their home field. So, also interesting that, I make these graphics pretty close to when we go live here. And in the hour between making them, there was Lions money to move this back to the keyish number of 6 and 6.5 when it was 5.5 earlier here on Thursday afternoon. So that was clearly a buy point for some people in the market once it dipped under 6 for Detroit. I have concerns about Taylor Decker missing practice on the offensive line for Detroit after they already lost Frank Ragnow to retirement in the offseason. I agree with you that you could make an argument that the Lions didn't look as bad as the final score said last week. They went 1 for 4 in the red zone. Packers got up 10-0. The Lions stalled at the Green Bay 12. Packers go up 17-3. Lions get back down to the Green Bay 16 before Goff throws a pick. Start of the second half, Detroit has 1st and goal. They only get a field goal. So a little more red zone luck, a little more red zone positive regression is a totally different game. But it looks like these cluster injuries for Chicago are getting a little better this week too. Looks like Jalen Johnson practiced their top corners. So I don't know. I mean, this is the survivor team I was thinking about if I wasn't going with the Ravens. I'm not sure I'm going to do it. I'm a little nervous still about these 2 new coordinators in the Lions trying to figure it out still.
I'm with you there on that one. I mean, listen, this was, if we're going to start seeing Detroit money, 6, 6.5, 7 could become a teaser leg for you if you just think that they maybe go out and win the game. Quick reminder, if you're kind of new to all of this, the way that these new books do it, you don't have to take the full 6 points if you want to. You can basically just do an alternate line parlay. You invent your own teaser, if you will. So at 6, you only need to get 3.5 from them, to get it under a field goal and things like that. So you don't need the full 6. So these are all things that you can do to manipulate the line a little bit, make you feel a little bit more comfortable and still not pay out the nose for any of that. I'm taking a wait and see, Steven. I don't think Detroit is as bad as what we saw last week. I actually think that the Packers are just maybe a little better than I thought, but that's why I'm pumping the brakes on this, because I at least want to see it on the field.
I think Detroit will be fine in the long run. What makes me the most nervous is not just that they lost Ben Johnson, but they lost their passing game coordinator who became an OC for the Jets, and they also lost their wide receiver coach as well. So it was basically the top 3 guys on the offensive coaching staff that were completely out the door. And now, 4th string guy becoming the offensive coordinator, or essentially. So that's what makes me a little bit nervous.
We got Seattle on the road at Pittsburgh. This is currently 3.5 out there, actually. So 3 with a rogue 3.5 out there in favor of Pittsburgh. 39.5-40 is our total here in this one. Obviously screams teaser leg of the week with the Seahawks. I mean, in a game with a 39 or a 40 total, if you can get this thing up to 8.5, that is stuff that dreams are made of typically. Steven, so that's the only way I would look at this one. I know you think Pittsburgh had a good offensive performance. I rewatched that game. Like, cornerbacks ran into each other. There was like blown coverages left and right. Like, I'm not ready to give it to them as like having a good offense yet. That said, Aaron Rodgers didn't look completely washed, so that's good. Running game didn't really work, but we'll figure that out maybe somewhere along the way. It's just a super low total. A teaser leg obviously just like screams at me, but that's about it. You like Pittsburgh though?
Yeah, I bet Pittsburgh -2.5. If it pops up again, I would still grab it, even if it's a little heavier juice to get through that key number of 3. I agree with you. I think 2 things can be true, Matt. I think Pittsburgh was fortunate to win that game last week. The second thing I think is also true is the prior I had about Seattle coming into the season, where this offensive line is a problem and it's a horrible match with Sam Darnold. He benefited greatly from one of the highest snap to throw times in the league last year. Amazing protection from his offensive line. He does not have that benefit this time around in Seattle. And I don't think Pittsburgh's defense is bad. I think they had a bad week 1, and now you got TJ Watt coming in and the rest of that ferocious Pittsburgh front off a terrible performance at home. I think this is a problem in terms of
Sam Darnold also is not Justin Fields. So like he doesn't present
Yeah.
the same problems that Justin Fields
mobility,
presents.
RPO, all that stuff. So yeah, I know there's a lot of people that we both respect that like Seattle coming into the season. I was not one of them. I felt they had zero excuse for losing that game against San Francisco last week. It was basically handed to them on a platter with the way things went and also with the injuries that the 49ers had, and they still couldn't win that game. Now going across the country on an early kickoff, yeah, I'll take the Steelers less than a field goal here.
The other one that is at least mildly interesting to me in this, it looks like Calvin Austin is definitely the wide receiver too. If you look at the stats from this past week, I mean, just the amount that he was out there on the field and the routes that he ran and the sets that he was out there in, I don't know if the algorithm believes that quite yet. It's it's 38.5 receiving yards for Calvin Austin. If he is the true wide receiver too, then, and if Aaron Rodgers isn't completely washed, if he isn't cooked, then 38.5 is too low. So I can't say that I know for sure he's a wide receiver too. And I can't say for sure that I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is not cooked, but I will say if he's got something left in the tank and if Calvin Austin's wide receiver too, 38.5 is definitely too low because DK Metcalf can't run all the routes. Like DK Metcalf doesn't do all the things, and Calvin Austin actually does, and ran a lot, ran out wide, ran out of the slot, did all kinds of things like that. And so I think that that's at least somewhat intriguing.
I've heard worse ideas as well with an Art Smith run offense of just taking like the most random guy to have the first or anytime touchdown, like tight end 3 Dwayne Washington or something. Like Ben Skoranek scored a touchdown last week for Art Smith. So
San Francisco on the road at New Orleans. This is down to 3 in favor of San Francisco. 40.5 to 41 is our total. Why is this down, you might ask? Why was this up at a touchdown and it is down to a field goal? Because George Kittle moved to IR. They're going to be without Brock Purdy for 2 to 5 weeks. They were already without Brandon Ayuk. It is another couple of guys that are questionable to play in this game on the San Francisco side as well. What looked like to be the surefire, easy, slam dunk survivor play of the week has now become completely untouchable. And now you actually have to ask yourself how you want to bet the game.
At this point, not betting the sides.
Yeah.
It'd only be the under for me. But my work got done. Like this is another really easy lesson for people who are just trying to make good bets. You'd be surprised how much the market still hasn't moved yet when some injury news actually comes out. Like most of us who follow football understood on Sunday night and Monday that the Niners had injuries with a lot of guys who likely weren't going to play. Nevertheless, the total hadn't moved yet. I bet under 44.5 on this game. If you understand the likelihood of injuries and guys not being available, it will still take some time for that number to move. So now you're getting the worst of the number on the under. I'm still not sure the under should start with a 4 in this game between Spencer Rattler and Mac Jones, but just understand if you have notifications on your phone for these insiders and these aggregate accounts that give you news, you can get ahead of some of these line moves quite easily.
Yeah, this one, there's always a game. We used to say you take it, fire it into the sun. But this is that game for me this week. Take that game, fire it into the sun.
Oh, I can't wait for my field goals, man. Jake Moody got fired. Like this is a great week for me. I got a great under, and Jake Moody's not the one. It would be ironic if I lose this bet because Jake Moody's no longer missing field goals. That would.
So, despite having an incredible amount of games this week, we only have 3 in the afternoon window. So thanks NFL. Like cool that you did that. Carolina and Arizona is one of those games. This is 6.5, 7 in favor of Arizona at home over Carolina. 44 to 44.5 is our total. Now, Steven, I do have Arizona available with 2 of my entries because I used them with the majority of my entries in week number 1. So the 2 that I have Arizona available, I will be using Arizona. But this, to me, back home against this defense, even if Bryce Young plays a little bit better, even if this offense plays a little bit better, this defense is going to be one of the 5 worst defenses in all the NFL. I expect James Conner to run crazy. I expect Benson to run crazy. I expect Kyler Murray to run crazy. I think this is going to be a very, very easy handled game for Arizona at home on the ground against Carolina. So yeah, the very easy survivor pick if you have them available, and then also, you know, whatever teaser leg, if you want to play that, you want to take them down to basically win the game or whatever it is. I don't hate that either.
Yeah, I bet Cardinals -6.5 in this game,
Yeah.
and it doesn't make sense to me that it's not on the other side of 7. Cardinals closed around 6 against New Orleans on the road last week, with Kyler Murray popping up on the injury report with an illness. If you flip home field, it means they probably would have been at least an 8-point favorite against New Orleans in their own stadium. I have Carolina right next to New Orleans in my week 2 power rankings this week for the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, how is this not at least 7? So if 6.5 is available, I thought that was a good bet. I agree with you. If they're available in Survivor, that's who I'm taking. It looks like Kwanu is going to be back on the offensive line for Carolina, but I mean, I felt big picture going into this season that it was massive arrow up for Arizona as long as that roster was healthy. They outperformed the market in back-to-back years, despite having bottom 5 injury luck in both of those years. And I also found a 14-1 on Jonathan Gannon for Coach of the Year earlier today. Circa, the smart people just hammered it. It's down to 7-1 here. So I'm not alone here in trying to lock in some Jonathan Gannon for Coach of the Year. There's a very good chance they could start the season 5-0 or 6-1. And then the second half of the season doesn't look as tough as I thought it was coming into the year. I know it's only been 1 week, but 49ers injuries as well. So next week against the Niners looks easier than it would have been. I think there's a very good chance that this team just outperforms its preseason expectations with the schedule it's been handed. And just with the health that they have on the roster.
I also played in this one over 33.5 rushing yards for Trey Benson. This has to do with game script for me. Like I said, if I think the Cardinals handle them and handle them pretty easily, then Benson, by the way, who ate into James Conner's carry share anyway, right? Like, I mean, if you look at that, my eye test, right? And I'm not a talent evaluator, but like he looked like as good or better than James Conner to me. Like I thought he was as good or better, and I'm getting 33.5. If this thing gets out of hand, like I think it could, then he's going to get the carries down the stretch anyway. James Conner nicked up, you know, a lot over his career. They're not going to like give him unnecessary carries and stuff. And so I think it's a pretty solid play. I think he's just going to be a mix. I think he's just going to be mixed in no matter what, Steve. So like, yeah, I think the game script plays to the handicap, but also I just think he's going to be part of this backfield.
Wouldn't shock me in the least. And Connor's getting up there. I think it's the last year of his contract. They spent a high draft pick on Trey Benson for a running back. So a lot of the scouts, a lot of the talent evaluators really liked him coming into the league. So he got a slow start in his rookie year, but I do like the talent, and I like your handicap there.
Denver Broncos on the road at the Indianapolis Colts. This is a point all the way to 2.5. So you can find a 1, you can find a 2.5 out there in the market on this one. 43.5. This is one of those cases, Stephen, like you said. So it's back to a point at Circa on Denver. So a little bit of Broncos money has come in. So. Yeah. 43.5, the prevailing total out there in this one. Obviously, Denver looked like gutter trash at the quarterback position. Bo Nix was just absolutely atrocious. He's not as bad as that. It was a horrible performance. Daniel Jones and the Colts look pretty good. He does raise the floor of this team, and I'm very curious to see what he looks like against one of the best defenses in the NFL at home. No play for me here in this one. I know some people are going to try to recommend the Colts as a teaser leg. I got to see it with Daniel Jones 2 weeks in a row first. I think Denver, there's a chance for them to win at margin here in this one, so I'm staying away.
Market ratings had this 3.5 coming into the year. I think 3 at minimum would be fair, given what we saw last week. If you do want to bump up the Colts a little bit, I think you draw a line through that game last week for Denver. It's week 1. I think a lot of offenses didn't look great. So it's week 2. It's overreaction week. There's going to be some pretty big line moves off the look ahead because we finally got some information. But going through the key number of 3 all the way down to almost a pick, you know, I was wondering when the buy point was going to be for Denver this week because it was one-way action on the Colts up until this point. And now that the limits are getting a little higher, Matt, I guess the respected money is finally ready to come in here on the Denver side. That makes me a little more comfortable because I thought it was me against every other sharp bettor in the world before that action came in today. So I feel a little better about it. I just think it's a huge step up in class for Daniel Jones versus what he faced last week. This is an elite defense in Denver, and I think it's a huge step up in class for the Indianapolis defensive line against the Denver offensive line, who we all thought was one of the elite units in the NFL. So it's still Daniel Jones against a really good defense. And if I'm wrong and Shane Steichen is a wizard, then I'll pay one more week to see it. But I'm not ready to make that big of a move through that key number of 3 on Indianapolis just yet.
I think the side note here for me, though, is no matter what the class or whatever, like Tyler Warren is the truth. By the way, massive 37% target share in that game. Like, he's not going to get that every game, but like, I mean, DFS players out there, like all you guys. So like, I mean, like the dude's the truth. He is legitimate. He might already be a top 8 tight end in the NFL after one game playing.
Well, it's not like Daniel Jones is going to be a great deep ball passer.
Yeah.
So he's going to be looking for the easy stuff underneath. That's for sure.
Eagles on the road at the Kansas City Chiefs. This is currently anywhere from a pick to a 1.5 in favor of Philadelphia. I got on this when they were 1.5 dogs. And so I have a 1.5 with the Eagles. That should surprise nobody. I have been an Eagles backer for now a solid year and a half here on all content that I've done everywhere. And so if I'm getting a 1.5, for the first time in a while, Steven, there is a decent little gap between the Eagles and the Chiefs in my power ratings. Like, Xavier Worthy did get out there and do some practicing today, but even if he plays, he's not going to be 100%. Travis Kelce looks like he's dust. Running back route, Pacheco looked horrible. I don't know. There was not a lot to like about what I saw from the Chiefs. Now I get one game sample size, I understand, but if you got to go to war with Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown against Philadelphia, I don't know how you come out on top there. You're going to give me a 1.5. I'm going to take it. I would lay the point as well with the Eagles. That's how much I like them in this game.
I was right there with you, man. I just went money line instead. I bet plus 105 on the Eagles at the beginning of the week. And you and me going against the massive trend of Mahomes and his pristine record when he's less than a field goal favorite or an underdog. But I'll just can't believe I have to remind people of this. He got smacked by this team not too long ago in the Super Bowl, 34-0 in that game. And I'll just ask, is this not the worst collection of pass catchers Patrick Mahomes has ever had? Xavier Worthy is now banged up. He did return to practice, but you're not going to be 100% coming off an injury like that in a week. KC had a travel disadvantage coming into this game, having to come all the way back from Brazil, where the Eagles had to play at home on a Thursday night. I don't understand why we have to be just narrative street on Patrick Mahomes when this team was already outperforming expectations in the regular season last year and winning a ton of close one-possession games, losing box scores. Any other team in the NFL, you would have said, okay, negative regression's coming for a team like this. But because it's Mahomes, I can understand because it's him. But this roster has issues at the moment, at least until Rashee Rice comes back and Worthy gets back to 100%.
Let's also talk about the secret thing that like nobody talks about, because we always talk about the skill position, talk whatever. This offensive line's not very good.
It's not.
Dude, they had to get rid of Joe Tooney. This offensive line isn't very good. And so Mahomes is about to face a different challenge that he hadn't had to face over the course of his career, which is he's going to have to deal with a bad offensive line. And I think that this is
Jalen Carter against a Tooney-less interior unit for the Chiefs. Yeah. And Jawan, dude, have you seen a worse game from a tackle than Jawan Taylor last week? And I'm not even sure that was the worst game I've seen of Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, so we have he's got a whole new thing that he's got to deal with too, which is he's got to deal with a bad offensive line. And the Eagles is not the team that you want to be going up against with a bad offensive line. Okay, 2 more games that we'll talk about here. Actually, 3 more games, I guess, real quickly as we get to the prime time games. Atlanta, Minnesota. We get a doubleheader on Monday Night Football with Tampa Bay, Houston, Chargers, and Vegas. Real quick, guys, as we get close to countdown, I was getting close to kickoff here. 3.5 now at DraftKings in favor of Green Bay. So DraftKings has joined Circa and ESPN at 3.5 on the home team. And interesting out there in the market, Steven, MGM is at 3 and they're at 3 at 110. So like there's a weird disagreement going on out there in the markets as far as like the difference in the prices, but just, yeah, interesting stuff.
Hey, if you like 3 on the Packers, you can still find it. If you like 3.5 on the Commanders, you can now find it. So just make sure whatever side you like tonight, you're getting the right side of that key number.
Atlanta, Minnesota. This is 3.5 in favor of the Vikings. 44.5 is our total. Everything inside of me says I should bet Atlanta. Everything tells me I should take advantage of this. I haven't put it in the account yet, Steven. I don't know why. I think I was holding off to make sure that we were going to get the wide receivers out there. It looks like we are, but that's not a guarantee. If I have a ticket in my account and I have to go to battle with Ray McLeod as the number 1 wide receiver, I'm going to feel like an idiot. So like, I don't know. I hadn't put it in there yet, but I have a pretty strong lean towards Atlanta.
Because they came back, I think they came back to practice yesterday, right? It was a Wednesday for Mooney in London, not a Thursday. I bet it right then. I got a 4.5 on the Falcons. I'm not ready to make JJ McCarthy a 4.5 point favorite. I concede that Minnesota has one of the best home field advantages in the NFL, but I thought Atlanta was the bad luck loser of week 1. They should have won that Bucks game for a number of different reasons. Turnover worthy plays by Baker Mayfield, missed kicks by the kicker, injuries in game to wide receiver, and Penix still drove them down for a potential game tying drive. I was very impressed with Michael Penix coming out of that game. I thought it was very strange that a unit we thought was going to be the best or one of the best at rushing the football with that offensive line and Bijan Robinson got basically smothered by Vita Vea to 2.2 yards per carry for the running backs. I don't think that's going to happen again. So I'm going to stick to my prior here that this is going to be a very dynamic rushing offense. Penix really impressed me, and I think it's just a little too much for a guy making his second career NFL start in JJ McCarthy.
Steven, we're up against it here. I know you have plays in both Monday night games. I'll just let everybody know you like the dogs in both of those, games. So that said, circle back around. About 5 minutes from kickoff here, guys. Again, we're at 3.5 out there, Green Bay and Washington. If you just joined us, recap, me and Steven both took Washington with 3 in the hook. You can still find 3 in the hook that is out there in the market right now. No play on the total, 48.5. For me, I also did a rushing prop on Jordan Love, down 2 offensive linemen. I think the pressure is going to get to him a couple of different times, but sometimes when the pressure doesn't get home, it can create running lanes. It's not that Love can't run. He just doesn't do it very often. And so I think getting 6 yards is well within his range of outcomes, being down 2 offensive linemen in this thing. I also played Terry McLaurin over 51.5 receiving yards. I like him to reestablish himself as that wide receiver 1 here. I think it was just more of a, where do I fit in? How's this all working? Hadn't been there all training camp type situation for him. It's not Deebo Samuel. It's Terry McLaurin. They paid him to be the wide receiver 1, and I believe he establishes that role again back there tonight. And 51.5 is just too short for a wide receiver 1 with Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Steven, what are you looking at here tonight in this one?
I am looking at Commanders to cover the spread. I bet it at 4. I'd still bet it at 3.5. I like, in terms of props, 2 rushing yards markets. Jaden Daniels under 49.5 yards. You can find that at some extra juice, or you can go under 47.5 if you don't want to pay the juice. I just think zone coverage, for the most part, one of the highest rates of zone coverage for the Packers, makes it tougher for quarterbacks to scramble and improvise with their legs. So unless it's designed runs, it's going to be tough for Jaden Daniels to get to that number, I think. And a little bit more of a long shot, we're going to go to Krosky Merritt here, old Bill Krosky Merritt. And his number's at 37.5, 39. I would actually take a longer shot here. Just a fun little side bet. Certainly not a full unit bet here, fractional unit. For me, it's a quarter unit on Krosky Merritt, most rushing yards in this game at 5-1 or better. I found 5-1 at my book.
Guys, this has been Circa tonight. Steven's there at the shiny new toy, the sportsbook there in Kentucky. It's awesome. If you're within driving distance, you got to plan to get down there for a weekend and take in some games. It's absolutely fantastic. And of course, our friends at SharpStack, where we have been looking at comparing all of these odds, comparing all of these props as well. Go in, TNF Live, if you want 7 days for free and 25% off when you actually do join, or listen, just use just join. Like, you don't need the free. Everything is great. This is a site that I'm using on a daily basis, and trust me, I've tried them all. I Stephen can attest. I've tried them all. I absolutely love it, and so definitely can help you in your handicapping as well, Stephen. Hopefully we have us a good week number 2 here. We got us a great game getting ready for tonight, and buddy, we'll be back next week to break it all down.
Cannot wait. If you have more questions about Monday Night Football, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. This is going to be a good one. Enjoy it, everybody.